jams and his command, and as a result, his ability to command his forces.
Electronic warfare was used by both sides. For example, many civilians worldwide now use the global positioning system to find their way. But this satellite network was originally built for US military use. It guided most of the American and British precision bombs and missiles used in Iraq. Only to be expected then that Iraqi forces would attempt to jam it.
You jam GPS, a man sitting in a room with one fairly medium-sized box and a power supply, and you subvert your entire precision targeting strategy over a given area. That's the crucial danger of GPS jamming.
There are photos on the web of what are said to be GPS jammers. This is described as a Russian one. The United States says Iraq bought 6 GPS jammers, but that the technology is ineffective.
The US Air Force has targeted those jammers and has destroyed them, and indeed one was destroyed with a GPS weapon.
This odd-looking US Navy aircraft played a large role in the electronic battle over Iraq. The EA-6B carries a pilot and 3 electronic warfare officers.
It can jam radar, it can look out for radio communications, it can jam those, it can pick up mobile phone transmissions, and it can spoof as well. Now what spoofing is looking for a radio frequency that's in use by hostile forces and in the same language sowing confusion or even trying to persuade people to do the wrong thing.
Electronic persuasion was even broadcast from the skies. This converted Hercules as a flying radio and TV station, transmitting to the Iraqi people. It fought a war of information, what military planners call psychological operations, or PSYOPs.
It can broadcast, as I understand, about 100 kilometers into a country, and it broadcasts messages in the appropriate language, and it's sending messages like this war is not against Iraqi civilians.
Later, on the ground, soldiers took on the PSYOPs broadcasting role as well. Even the increased use of fiber optic cables by Iraq since the first Gulf War affected the electronic battle this time. Signals on fiber optic cables can be very hard to listen into.
The problem with fiber optic cables is that they don't make any emission from the cable. An electrical cable has a magnetic field around it, and you can, if you have the right sensor in the right place, you can read what is being sent along the cable. You have to be pretty close. You need special forces for that. So fiber optic cables deeply buried are a real problem. The other thing they replace, of course, is radio traffic. And that is quite easy to detect and record. It's not necessarily so easy to decode or to interpret or to sift. But the fiber optic cable actually defeats the radio and the traditional landline means of interception.
But all of this electronic sophistication still couldn't prevent accidents. Identification friend or foe, or IFF systems, are supposed to stop friendly fire. We'll look more closely at that issue in a minute. In 21st century combat, there is often as much data flying through the air as hot metal. The effects of electronic warfare may not seem immediate or as brutal as real battle, but its outcome often profoundly affects who lives and who dies when nations go to war.
Even so, despite the increased sophistication of war fighting and weaponry, innocent civilians are still being killed or injured, their lives and property destroyed. And it's not just innocent bystanders who are at risk. This war has been notable for several high-profile cases of death and injury by so-called friendly fire. In the era of the GPS-guided bomb, how is this still possible? Well, Lieutenant Colonel Mark White is one person who can shed some light on that and other questions. He's a former military intelligence officer and electronic warfare specialist.